In step 15 of this IPL course on self-awareness, we talk about how you can use a Venn mental model to understand more about your interaction with other people and what you can do to extend the relationships that you have and become more of an influencer on other people, as well as empathizing better with their needs and wants.
If we focus on that, we can apply our critical analytical thinking in terms of that, and we simplify things and we enable ourselves to focus. Okay, what is this domain? This domain is you. Remember, this is a model. This is you. It represents you in a social context. So if that's you, and we are talking about social activity, which involves other people and interpersonal dynamics or preferences. So inter means there's a person here in that domain, and another person there, or it may be several people there. So this could be one-to-one. This could be a one-way communication. That diagram shows a one-way communication from you to a number of other people. In this, because I've shown, if it was just the one circle, it would be you to one other person. As it is, there's 4 people there, so you call that a group. And if you were talking to pretty well everybody in the possible audience out there, as I am doing with this presentation, it's me, this is one, and this is one to many, so that's many. So that's called one to many. The other one I talked about is one to one, and so on and so on. So we're talking the general concepts. Right, so we are talking now about one-to-one communication. So the interpersonal dynamic is one-to-one, you talking to one other person. And here's the other person. Let's draw their domain. It's you. Very often we give names to people, okay? So hey, let's give this person a name. Let's give him a simple name, John. It could just as easily be Mary. And here in Santa Cruz, you can be talking to people, and quite honestly, I'm not quite sure if they're a John or a Mary, but that's a separate issue. So there you are, you're talking to this person. You're saying hello, and they say hello back. Now, if you're not really getting on very well, and they're just strangers, and you're going to go on being strangers, then that's fine. There is a protocol, there's a set of rules for how that hello, how are you, I'm fine, thank you. That's called a ritual. And then you might go further along. This is touching into transactional analysis a little bit. Book by Eric Byrne, The Games People Play. He's written about 6 other books. They are brilliant. They're kind of the original chapters, initial chapters, are a bit heavy going. There's some great concepts in there. Or you can watch transactional analysis on YouTube, actually, and see it greatly simplified. It is well worth doing, understanding transactional analysis, without going into the deep psychology of it. And the reason I say that is he developed it for disturbed people, where the transactions were going wrong, and a lot of what he's done is analysing transactions where there are what's called cross transactions, parents bullying their children, or all sorts of stuff, but it's mostly to do with relationships which are a bit knackered, spoiled. The ordinary theory of transactional analysis is very, very useful for healthy people talking to each other. So at this stage, these two people are talking to each other. They're just using standard being polite rules, but they're not really building a relationship. There's no real friendship here. Now, if you want to develop your soft skills, you need to be mindful of your conversation, which I talk about a lot, and you can learn a lot about conversation from the text. There are methods and ways you can use conversation and techniques like, what should we go? I've got a blue pen here. You can use questions, you can use listening, you can use a tool called the sound profile, answering, and a concept called parking. And there's a whole bunch of other techniques you can use, which are all soft skills. Now, the normal books you read and so on about developing your social intelligence, they'll just say, get better at asking questions or become a better listener. That's one they often say. Learn how to listen to other people. I actually, on those videotapes with Corbin and some of my other material, I tell you how to listen. I've done a bunch of things called the Cyprus Tapes. I'm going to put that in red as well. The Cyprus Tapes. I think there's a dozen of them, and they talk to you in the talking to camera type thing, but without the blackboard, just me talking head type stuff. And I go through these kinds of soft skills that help you change this relationship and improve your relationship between you and another person. Because we are human animals. We have a hunger and a need for good relationships. And we go for different levels of relationship, and that's yet another model. But we need relationships almost just to survive, not go bonkers, which is why in prison they put you in solitary confinement as kind of one of the worst punishments you can have. And it is a punishment. And sadly, if you're an old person and you're not close to family and you don't have many friends, you're in a kind of solitary confinement. It can get very, very lonely, even though there's TV there and stuff like that. A bit of social contact is hugely important. So if you have time to go and see a person who you know to be lonely, whether they're young or old, that's a great gift if you feel you can give them that little piece of time. I recommend it because as long as you do it in moderation, it makes you feel better as well. Anyway, let's move on from all that. So how do I show you in a model the change in relationship that you have with this person? And the answer is we use this thing called a Venn diagram. So if you're trying to think about what's your relationship, if you're trying to measure, in a way, what's your relationship with this other person, before they were strangers, there was no overlap. But if you get to know them a bit, there's them, you and I'll call them them. But remember, this is just a person. This isn't them in terms of a group or the whole world and stuff. So it's them. Do you know what? To keep it straightforward, I'm not going to call it them because that does bring in confusion. Let's just keep calling it John. So this model is meant to show that you now know John. You have things you share in common. You know you both like, let's say, cycling or something like that. So you can talk to John about cycling. Or it could be fishing, or in a less good case, it could be drinking or something. So you know John, and you can talk about that. And you have a kind of relationship-ish. Now, the more this domain moves across in this direction towards you, the more they come towards you, this area will increase of shared interests. And this is the good stuff, actually. This is important to have good relationships. But the other way to make it happen is if they're not that friendly, you can move towards them. Occasionally, the issue of how do you chat up a girl, I don't know if you use that phrase, how do you build relationships, how do you meet new people and stuff like that. It's really important that you are prepared to go towards them and seek areas of common interest. So if you join a tennis club, for example, it's implicit in that you're going to need to find someone else to play tennis with. Tennis on your own is kind of not that good a game. You can bang balls against a wall and get practice, but it's not really playing tennis. So joining a tennis club or whatever, joining a bridge club, joining any club is going to bring you into contact with people. So by joining the club, you are moving towards John and or a bunch of other people. So that club is called a common interest group, or C.I.G, C-I-G, common interest group. Now, coming back to the world of work, the other way of approaching this is this domain, actually it might be a company. You can use this model of thinking. This is a company and they are trying to build relationships with other companies. So if they want to do that successfully, yes, they can just advertise and hope somebody comes along. But if it's a company and you sign your company up to a particular professional institute, say, so if you're an architect, you join the National Architecture Society or whatever, that National Architecture Society is going to be a common interest group. So if you're looking to join a company that's in a particular industry, who knows what it'll be, let's say it's an architect company, then you might be thinking, I'm going to apply to that particular architect. But it might be a smart idea to look up other architects in your area or a town or a country that you quite like to work in. And you will be able to contact the National Society for Architects or whatever, and they'll have a library. And you can go along to the library, talk to the librarian. Librarians love to be talked to, and say, I would like to find an architect that does stuff that I like. And they say, well, what do you like? Oh, I particularly like designing estates or gardens or tower blocks or something like that. And the librarian will point you and help you focus towards companies that fit that. And then you can focus your application on those particular companies, and you'll increase the probability of you finding a job that you actually are going to enjoy, rather than just, because this is a big part of your life. I mean, depending on what country you're in, you're talking minimum 3/4 of your awake time working for a company. So, and again, I know I come back to America, but nearly people's whole lives in America are very wrapped up in their jobs. They work to live rather than live to work. And that's all right. They seem happy at it. I'm certainly not critical of it. It's just different to the European way. You decide what you want. If you go into finance, banking, for example, in the city, you've got to be ready to work dawn till dusk, 6 days a week. No, much longer than dawn till dusk, sorry. You've got to be ready to put in a 16-hour day, that's for sure. Probably 6 days a week. And maybe you'll make a shed load of money, maybe you'll just enjoy doing it. But these are things for you to decide.
So take out your whole new world life book and make some notes as to what kind of personality you think you are. How friendly are you? And ask a few people that know you well how they perceive you. Do they think you're easy to approach? Do they find you interesting to talk to? And have they got any suggestions about how you could be even better?